everyone, and welcome back to the Late Night Yap. This week's episode, we're going back to our classic Am I the Asshole stories. As you know, these ones are my favorite. I've been having so much fun so far reading all of these stories with you guys. And if you can believe it, it's been an entire 6 months since I posted my first story. And even though it seems like time flew by so fast, I feel like I've grown so much since I started making these videos. And I just wanted to say thank you to each and every single one of you that enjoy these videos and love watching them, because I definitely enjoy reading these stories to you. And we're coming up on our last little bit of holiday left for the season, but I am really excited to see where next year takes me. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into our first story. Am I the asshole for asking my adoptive parents if they have a college fund for me like they do for my sister? I, 17 male, was adopted as an infant. My parents were in their late 30s and had tried to have bio kids for years. It didn't happen for them for more than a decade, so they looked at infant adoption. My birth parents chose them to be my parents, and my parents were present for my birth, and my adoptive mom held my birth mom's hand as I was born. Then I went home with my adoptive parents, and the rest was history. 3 years after they adopted me, my parents found out that my adoptive mom was pregnant with my sister, 14 female. I don't know if they treated me different after or if they were always a little less in love with me than some adopted kids get, but I always felt that my sister was the clear favorite and their real child. My parents adore her, they spoil her. She gets all the cute nicknames like Little Sweetheart, Baby Star, to list a couple of them. They were also really obsessed with how much she looked like a perfect mix of the both of them. My mom's eye color and nose, my dad's hair color and round face and other features. A few of my cousins used to rub it in real good that my parents had their real kid, and now if they could send me back, they would. My family knew they said it, but nobody seemed to care very much. I didn't get the cuddles and kisses like my sister. I didn't get the quality time with each of my parents like she did. Didn't get crazy spoiled like her either. They didn't completely ignore me, and I did get gifts, but they spent less on me and bought less for me too. Maybe it was the fact that I'm a guy and she's a girl, I don't know. I told my parents a few times that I felt left out, and that didn't change or acknowledge anything. They said it just wasn't true. And just like, oh yeah, and then they moved on. My sister noticed the difference and she'd make fun of it. She used to say that she wished she had a real sibling and not a fake one, or how her cousins were her real family and not me. A year ago, I found out my parents had a huge college fund for my sister. They were talking to my aunt, my mom's sister, about it and how they had invested a few things and taken from their savings for it. They never mentioned having one for me, and it stung, and I thought a lot about it. I got asked in school if I had money or if I would get help from my parents from college, but I never knew what to say. I told them I didn't think so, and then financial aid was discussed. I reached out to my birth parents a few months ago too. My parents gave me their names and info, whatever they had, and they don't want a relationship with me. My parents said that they expected as much but figured it wasn't their place to say. They didn't comfort me or anything, and my sister said I had 4 parents who didn't want me, so I must be broken. 2 weeks ago, my parents asked to speak to my guidance counselor about how busy they are and to tell her she would talk college stuff with me and not them. I figured she wanted to find out about the money, and that's why she wanted to talk to them. It got to me, and I asked if they had a college fund for me like they have for my sister. They asked me how I knew about it and got mad that I asked the questions. I asked them why they would make sure she has one but not me when I'll be going to college first, and they asked me why I was asking questions that was none of my business. It made me feel like shit, and since that day there's a whole tension in the house, and my sister is rubbing it in that she gets a college fund and I don't. My parents never said either way, but not saying anything is basically an answer, right? Am I the asshole? So as far as my personal opinion, I'm going to say not the asshole. I think it's really inconsiderate and evil for people to like adopt a child and then treat them like they're lesser than, because it's like, why did you adopt that child in the first place? But we're going to go ahead and read the comments here. The first comment says, not the asshole, 100% it's your business whether or not you have a college fund, and the fact that your parents are trying to tell you that it's not is frankly quite bizarre. Whether they do or don't could drastically impact your life. They chose to be your parents the moment you were born. They don't just get to back out of important responsibilities that come with having a kid just because they had another one, and I'm so sorry that they're enabling the behavior from your sister and cousins. And OP did reply and said, it is weird. I think one way for them to outright reject me as their son, but to not answer the question either. So instead of saying yes or no, they say it's none of my business, which felt kind of worse. But yeah, I absolutely agree. And honestly, OP, I feel like your best bet would be to secretly just let your guidance counselor know the whole family situation, because that's really what guidance counselors are for, and let them know that your parents are not to be trusted under any circumstance. And hopefully your guidance counselor does the right thing and does their job and helps you get where you need to go, because basically you could get your college fund, in various ways. And then I would think about maybe moving out. I know it's like the most difficult thing to do, but getting a job and moving out is probably your best bet at this point, and getting far away from these people as possible, and finding a group of really great friends that really care about you. Those people will honestly become more like family to you than your own like adopted family ever could have been for you. Because at some point, like, yes, that is your home life, but you do not have to keep any attachments to people that don't care about you. The only reason why people like that would ever be mad that you left is because they would have to then explain the terrible behavior that they displayed towards you, and then also explain why they acted that way. And they don't want to hold themselves accountable, so they're going to make you a bad guy, and they're going to make it your fault for you leaving. But at the same time, it's like, you know the truth. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what people say, because eventually people are going to find out, and there's not going to be anything they can do to stop it or change what they did. Am I the asshole for telling my mother-in-law that we are never moving to Virginia? My husband and I met in college. I'm from Queens, New York, and he is from Virginia. When we graduated and decided what we wanted for our futures, I made it clear that I was living in New York. My life is here, and that's where I want to be my entire life, so if he wanted to move back to Virginia, we should end it. He said he wanted to live in New York too, so he moved to Queens, and we have been here for almost 10 years. His mom is not happy about it and has never gotten over it, but has mostly kept her mouth shut. Flash forward to now, I'm pregnant with our first. It's a boy. We went to visit his family for Thanksgiving. The entire visit, his mom kept making comments about how sad she is and won't be able to see her grandson grow up, and how there is so much more family in Virginia, and how my family is so small. For context, yes, my family is small. It's just my mom and my cousin and her 2 kids, and my aunt and uncle, but we're extremely close and we see each other multiple times a week. We ignored the comments at first, but she kept going. Finally, she said outright, it's only fair that we moved to Virginia now, since we lived in New York for almost 10 years. She said that our baby would have many cousins, aunts, uncles, and that our village would be stronger there, and that Virginia is safer, and we could afford a big house with a yard, and that she is retired so she could watch the baby all the time. At that point, I just had enough. I told her flat out that we are never moving to Virginia. Our lives are in New York, and there is zero chance that's changing. My husband agreed immediately and said that he's lived in both places and genuinely prefers New York. She shut up after that, but my sister-in-law told me I was too harsh and that I could at least consider it and listen to what she had to say. So, am I the asshole? Alright, so we have like a kind of post-Thanksgiving story, but we're going to go ahead and read the first comment here. It says, tell sister-in-law you've already had 10 years to consider it and the choice is obvious. It's time for mother-in-law to accept reality, not the asshole. And so I kind of agree. I mean, really the consensus here is not the asshole. I don't think OP is really an asshole. I think it's kind of inconsiderate when somebody is like constantly telling you what you need to do with your life and you are like, no, this is what I want to do. Like, at some point, mother-in-law just has to face the fact that like that's where her son wants to be, that's where he wants his family to be, and she's just gonna have to suck it up and get over it. But at some point, like, you can't force people to do things that they don't want to do. And I feel like there's a lot of mother-in-laws or just like grandmas in general that are really like nitpick about stuff like that. And at some point, to me, it's just like, is that really what you want to argue? Is that really what you want your relationship to be? Is you hounding somebody to do something that you want them to do? It's like, girl, like you don't get the choice. It's not your life. Like, is it inconvenient for you? Maybe, but you should take it as an opportunity of traveling. You said you're retired. Mother-in-law is retired, not OP, but mother-in-law is retired, and she could literally do whatever she wants at the end of the day. Like, come on now, like, go travel. And like, she has an opportunity to get out and see the world, and instead she's badgering like this pregnant lady about what? Something really irrelevant. Am I the asshole for not accepting my dad lashing out at me because I didn't want to honor his late wife when I graduated? My dad has been widowed twice now. My mom passed away when I, 18 male, was 7 years old, and it was heck for me. My mom had cancer. In the last 2 years she was alive, she was so sick and wasted away to nothing. I remember being so afraid of her at the very end and then feeling so guilty about it. Her passing away wrecked me. My dad remarried when I was 10, and his wife was diagnosed with ALS 3 years ago. She passed away in January. Her death really devastated Dad even more than my mom's did. My half siblings had just turned 4 and almost 6 when she passed, and they were really broken too. I wasn't close with her, and I didn't have my own grief when she passed. My dad struggled for months. Around May, he started to talk about my graduation, and it seemed like motivation for him to keep moving. But right after my graduation, he declined again and he became very distant from me. I tried talking to him about it, but he shut me out, and he shut out his siblings, my aunts and uncles too. They got him to agree to spend Thanksgiving as a family. He showed up and he was more on edge and avoided me for 80% of the day. A couple of family members brought it up and he'd deny it and then moved away when I approached. I didn't want to have any kind of fight in front of anyone else, so I didn't push it. But then he lost it and started lashing out on me. He brought up the way that I was so okay with his wife's passing and how it didn't take anything out of me. Then he told me I disrespected him, my half-siblings, and her by not honoring his late wife at my graduation. He said I found time to mention mom, but not the woman who was in my life for 8 years and took the role of mom when I didn't have another one around to do it. He told me that he effing hated me and was effing disgusting with my behavior, and that he wanted to beat the crap out of me for my disrespect. 2 of my uncles tried to calm him down, but he kept making threats and implying that I was some kind of disrespectful brat or monster or demon. He called me that 3 times. I told my dad that he had no right to decide who I would and wouldn't honor at my graduation, and I said I wasn't going to take him lashing out at me when he knew I wasn't close with his wife when she was alive. He yelled at me that I was supposed to realize how important she was to me after she passed. I was supposed to act like her passing was a huge effing thing because she was there and loved me and loved them, and they were a family. He told me if I had to honor mom, I needed to honor both moms, or I should be honoring the most recent loss. He said that I didn't even cry when she passed, and yet when mom passed, he thought I'd never stop. I said because mom was my mom and I loved her, and it really hurt me to lose her. I told him I was done and he could yell at a wall. I left. Aunts and uncles told me that they were sorry my dad was being like that and that they would try to talk to him. He started texting me for the first time in months, giving me crap for walking away and not being more understanding of his grieving process when he let me cry it out after mom passed. Am I the asshole? Now, the first comment says your dad needs grief therapy for sure. You did nothing wrong. And OP is only 18. Dad is the adult. What example is he setting for the other children? And honestly, I feel like dad really does need some sort of counseling or therapy there, because at the end of the day, somebody lost their biological mother is not the same thing as them losing a woman who stepped in after mom passed. I mean, honestly, it was probably really hard for that son in general as a young child. I mean, he was 7 years old when it happened. And it was probably really hard for him to connect with another woman in that way of being like the role of the mom. I mean, it'll affect parents differently because dad had a different attachment to this other woman. And while I do think both obviously passing are very, very sad, I mean, it's really up to OP what they decide in their life. I'm sure that OP had some feelings like, that's really sad that this woman passed. Like, this happened to my dad twice. But that's not really OP's grief to go through. And I think it really sucks when parents try to push, like, their emotions onto their child, because it's like, you need to go through your own emotions, and your child is not there to go through those emotions for you in order for you to heal. And I feel like that's like a really weird thing to say, but there's a lot of parents out there that do that, and it's like, you cannot force yourself onto your children and make them live out your life for you. Like, you need to live your life. And I feel like a lot of parents that are like traumatized or really stuck in like a very traumatic situation, they tend to do those types of things. Now, narcissistic people are a little bit different, but at the end of the day, like, I definitely feel, I feel like everybody could really benefit from family counseling and family grief therapy for sure. But honestly, now it seems like we're getting a lot of post-Thanksgiving stories. So people are now sharing all those stories of like family drama that's happened during their Thanksgiving dinner. So we'll keep that in mind for next year, and we'll kind of probably share these as like short form content for the next go round. So I'm not just reading the same stories over and over again every year. But man, some of these are just absolutely like, holy crap. But I mean, that does happen. Like, after a holiday, everybody has all those stories to share. So we're still kind of in the, like, that post-holiday time. And to be honest with you guys, when I read these stories, I just literally pull up Reddit. I pull up one of the subreddits and I just start reading. So I've never read these stories. I haven't even looked them up. I just pick a title that looks interesting and I just go with it. So just kind of like outing my little secrets there. But majority of these stories, I would say like 97% of the stories that I read, I have never read before, and this is my first time reading them. I do that though because I like the genuine reaction that I get and like the genuine like commentary that I can give in the moment, you know what I mean? Because I feel like it's a little bit, I don't know, it's just like, that's just how I like doing my content. But yeah, I don't really like plan any of these stories besides like the themes. So, but yeah, we're gonna go ahead and move on to our next story. Am I the asshole for telling my boyfriend's mom maybe she doesn't know her son that well? I, female, 28, have been dating my boyfriend, 30 male, for about a year and a half. He is my favorite person and I could talk every day about how amazing he is. He is very easygoing. He grew up the oldest with 3 younger sisters, so I think that had something to do with this go with the flow personality. He's not the type of person to make a big deal of his birthday or any of his accomplishments. But early on in our relationship, he mentioned how he always wanted a surprise party because his sisters and mom had them, and he was always involved in helping in some way but thought it would be cool to have one for himself. His birthday is November 28th, so it always falls right around Thanksgiving, so his birthday has naturally been overlooked at times with the holidays. With him turning 30, I decided it would be the perfect year for a surprise party. I planned a surprise party that was his favorite football team themed and had all of his favorite foods. His closest friends came, a bunch of his extended family, as well as immediate family and a few of my family members. Throughout the entire planning process, and even when we were decorating hours before the party, his mom kept insisting that he wouldn't like it, and that I don't know her son well enough, and that it's just a waste of time, etc. Well, when he arrived and we were surprised, he was so shocked but so happy. One of his sisters said that it was all my idea. She put it together. He got emotional and gave me the biggest hug and kept thanking me. At one point, his mom gave me a dirty look and said he doesn't even like his birthday. I shrugged and said maybe you don't know your son well enough. She told some people and they're calling me an asshole, but I talked to other people and they said that she was just jealous. So, am I the asshole? Now, the consensus on this story is not the asshole. And I mean, I kind of agree. If you're going to say something really petty to someone, then like, if you can't dish it, then like don't say it. But the first comment says, not the asshole, you're right. She doesn't know her son, and admitting he does like his birthday means admitting she neglected him and favored his sister's birthdays because it was near a holiday. Not the asshole, it probably would have been better to blow her off in her silly wrong comment completely, but she kept hoarding you, so you're in the clear. Yeah, because I was going to say, like, at some point, like, I feel like the comment obviously was, like, a really petty comment. But at the same time, it's like she kept insisting, like, oh, he's going to hate it. He's going to hate it. And he didn't hate it. And she's still sitting there being, like, negative Nancy. And it's like, girl, like, your son did like his birthday. Get over it. You're just mad because you don't want to take accountability for being a complete douche to him. Okay? Okay. Like, you neglected him. Oof. And another comment said, whoa, that boy... Another comment says, whoa boy, that woman is going to be a handful as a mother-in-law. Good luck, OP. You're definitely not the asshole here. And yeah, like mother-in-law is going to be, that is going to be the fight of the century for honestly. But again, I feel like a lot of these are going to be like post-Thanksgiving stories. So let's just, we're just going to keep reading. But I just have that feeling that most of these are going to be about everything that happened during Thanksgiving this year. But like I said, I think it's okay because I can just reshare these stories again, like in short form content from the long version of these stories, so that we still have new Thanksgiving stories to post, because all of the Thanksgiving stories that I found this year were Thanksgiving stories that have already been read by other podcasters because the stories were so old. But it's fine. It's fine. Because we still doing it. I just don't really want to copy other people, but it's fine. We do what we gotta do. It's the only stories there. But anyways, next story. Am I the asshole for evicting my sister and her fiance before their wedding? So before I read this story though, like you're getting married and you don't have like a place to live. It's kind of weird, but moving on. I, 30 female, currently live with my sister, 27 female, and her fiance, 31 male. My sister and I have lived together since I bought the house in 2020 during the pandemic. The two of us decided to move from our parents' house after dealing with too many control issues from our father, and thankfully I had the savings to purchase a condo. Okay, that makes sense. Don't mind me. That makes sense. My sister asked to move in with me because of the conflict. At that time, she didn't have a full-time job and she couldn't split the rent, so she asked if she could just cover the HOA fee, which was $300. Understanding her situation, I agreed and we moved in together. About a month after we moved in together, she asked if her boyfriend could stay with us temporarily due to him also having some family issues. I said he could only stay if he paid a little money for the month. We agreed, and the two of them would give me $500 for the month, so their individual costs would be low and I could get some extra money to pay the bills. The boyfriend, now fiance, never ended up leaving, and the problems have been piling up since. The house is always in a state of utter chaos, and I believe they might have hoarder tendencies. My sister will not let me throw anything away, and no matter how trivial, which has led to piles and piles of random objects strewn about the furniture and floors. There's an entire table in my kitchen delegated to junk where I end up piling up all the random things that she won't let me throw away when I'm cleaning. The countertops and floors are always sticky unless I clean them. My sister and fiance also refuse to clean anything that is too gross, like bathrooms, sinks, garbage cans, the refrigerator, and so I'm the only one left doing all these tasks. Our schedules don't coincide, so I often clean before bed, and by the time I wake up in the morning, the house is already trashed again. Whenever I ask them to help me with the cleaning, my sister will explain to me how she is too exhausted from her job to clean, and since she works as an ER nurse and the hours are long and irregular, her fiance is working full-time and going to school part-time, so he also uses this as an excuse to not participate in cleaning either. This leaves me as basically the sole cleaner of the house, which has become very emotional and physically taxing. Coming home fills me with dread since I never know how badly the home is going to be trashed. The other issues lie on the rent expenses. In the 5 years that we've lived together, they've just flat out refused to pay more rent. Even though the $500 they split was only a temporary offer and I tried again and again to get them to split the cost more evenly, they say it's not fair that they're expected to pay my mortgage for me, which means I end up covering utilities, the mortgage, HOA, and saving the $500 sent to me at the beginning of the month. They do pay for food though, which they argue is more costly than if I was to raise the rent. I feel like I'm being cheated though, especially because they seem to be able to afford a lot of vacations, with them traveling roughly 3 to 5 times a year. Admittedly, I am jealous. They seem to be spending their 20s traveling and having fun, whereas I spent most of my 20s working 60-hour weeks and saving money for my home. I lived at home for a few years before I was able to afford my home and wanted to give them the same privilege I had, but it feels like saving money was never their priority. They only started saving money until their engagement last June. They've been saving for their wedding since December of 2026, ever since 2024, but haven't managed to save considering the cost of their wedding will be close to $30,000. They both admitted to being frustrated with their financial situation, saying they don't think they'll be able to move out before the wedding. Meanwhile, I'm increasingly fed up with the situation. I want them out of the house, but my parents worry they won't be able to afford the wedding if they pay for real rent. I've told my parents that they could always let the two of them stay with them if they're that worried about them being able to afford the wedding, and my parents have vehemently refused to take the two of them in. I'm very close to reaching my breaking point and just asking them to move out, but I'm worried about if they'll be able to afford it. So I ask you, Reddit, am I the asshole for evicting my sister and her fiance before the wedding? Now, I feel like the consensus here is probably going to be not the asshole. I haven't really read any of the comments yet besides this first one, which is saying not the asshole. But in my personal opinion, I'm going to say not the asshole. I think that they're taking advantage of you. I mean, you gave them an opportunity and they're not really being responsible with the opportunity that they've been given, especially knowing that they came from very abusive households. Now, the hoarding tendency could probably just be honestly like trauma from living with your abusive father, which is something that does naturally happen. However, she needs to go to therapy and figure that out for herself instead of making it her sister's problem. And I get wanting like a safe space and finally being comfortable in a space, but that space does not belong to them. It belongs to you. And you have expressed repeated boundaries and they're not listening. So to be honest, I say, if I were you, I would let them know that they need to move out. I would give them 30-day eviction, just like you would any other, roommate or whatever, so that you can't legally get in trouble for it, because if they don't leave, you can legally kick them out. which hopefully it doesn't get to that. But if they're gonna get married, honestly, in my personal opinion, married people need to have their own space. And if they're gonna get married, I mean, they've saved up $30,000. I'm not sure where you guys live, but where I'm at, that is more than enough to have a wedding, like a nice, a nice wedding, but a small wedding. It might not be something extravagant, but unfortunately, with the times that we're in now, especially with him still being a student and her still getting on her feet and working like all those hours, I feel like they could use most of that money to get themselves their own house, because a down payment of like $20,000 plus first time home buyers for the both of them is more than enough to be able to get like a starter home. And like I said, it might not be anything fancy, but they could definitely get their own condo just like you have. It's really not that hard to do. I live in Florida, so I'm like basing all of this on like the numbers that I know like in Florida. And depending obviously on your area, you can find things that are in nice areas that are not, really crappy, and still be able to afford, all of those fees that come with buying a home, like inspections and stuff like that. I mean, they have plenty of money they saved up. Because I feel like a wedding in general, like, I feel like going all out and extravagant for a wedding you can't afford is really not, especially when you're like already in position that you can't afford living in general, like a mortgage, then you really aren't in a position to get married. And I feel like they're jumping too fast and they're doing something too soon and they're not being very responsible. And they're also causing you stress in a home that you bought to get away from a very vile situation. So I'm going to say not the asshole. I think OP needs to separate from the sister. I think they need to go their separate ways. But we're going to read the comments. So the first comment says, you can try to kick them out, but 5 years means that you're going to have to legally evict them if they know anything about the law. In the future, once they are finally evicted, which is going to take a long time, everything that moves in should be signing a renter's agreement, not the asshole for wanting them out, the asshole for not covering yourself legally. So... But another comment here, very curious, says actually this is an area where in fact that they've never paid rent. That may go in OP's favor because they're not tenants, they're guests. And I mean, that's true. But unfortunately, though, if they have received mail to the house, then they're legally tenants. So if you are having somebody live in your house and they have mail being sent to your address, legally they can claim that they live there, which I think is honestly ridiculous, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much, everybody here, yeah, is pretty much saying that OP is not the asshole. I do agree, and I think everything I said is pretty justified. I mean, I don't feel a need to keep anybody. I mean, I don't have anybody living in my house. But we're going to go ahead and read our last story. Grandparents no longer want my newborn around. Would I be the asshole to cut them off entirely? I'm married with a newborn, so currently on maternity leave, but my husband has been back to work from his paternity leave for a while now, so I'm generally alone most of the day. My mother recently suggested that she could take the baby to their house once a week so I can have some sleep and my parents and siblings can bond with the baby. I agreed and really appreciate the opportunity to rest, but also seeing how much my siblings adored their new nephew, it brought us closer together. I found out today from my mother that they have not been getting along with my sister recently, and apart from work, she spends most of the day locked up in her room and giving them the silent treatment. My mom said that the only time that she's nice to them and comes out of the room is when the baby comes. Because of this, my mom told me that my dad said that he no longer wants the son at the house in a form of punishment for my sister. Anyways, I'm so confused as to how my son caught a stray bullet from the family tension we have no knowledge or involvement in. I'm so deeply disturbed that their response to spiting my sister is to not see their grandson. I told my husband this, and he insisted that he doesn't want our baby going over there ever again. He reluctantly told me that he doesn't feel like his dad sees him as a grandchild, that he showed no interest in him even during my pregnancy and now. It's painful to accept, but my mom's words have been ringing in my head since. Would I be the asshole by refusing them spending any alone time with my newborn again? Personally, I'm going to say not the asshole. But the first comment says, what does your sister think? Your dad seems oddly controlling of your sister in a sinister way, taking away something that makes her happy even when it's his own grandson. I agree with your husband. I wouldn't allow the child back. You need to have a chat with your sister and make sure she's okay. I haven't told her as my mom started the conversation by making the promise to keep the conversation confidential. I also know telling my sister will cause more problems and I don't want anyone blaming me for it. My mom has apparently banned her from coming to my house and vowed to go to any lengths if she finds or has any access to us. My sister is okay, I think. She wants to move out but can't afford to. Actually, she can, but she doesn't want to spend half her salary on rent, but sometimes that's the cost of sanity. And I'm going to have to agree with the cost of sanity. Sometimes if you want to have a little bit of that peace of mind to get out of an abusive situation, you just got to do things that you don't want to do. And if your sister is like an adult and your parents are treating her like she's a little kid, like they're treating her like she's like 13. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not treating her like an adult. And I think it's really weird to use a baby as a form of like punishment for a child or like a grown person in general, because that's just really weird. I think that there's a lot more to this story than what we were obviously given, because this is just the part where OP wants to know if they're the asshole or not. But at the same time, I feel like as a mother, you have to protect your child, even if it's from your own family. And though it may hurt, I would just like not talk to them. And if they reach out to you, maybe just give them like a one-word answer or so, but don't really like give them any like information, or don't really talk to them. And you know, that way, like when holidays do come around or things happen, like maybe you guys can do stuff together still, but that way you're not straight out saying like, I don't like you, you're not going to see my baby anymore, because obviously that is going to cause problems. Unless they just keep outright asking and you're just like, look, you're not getting access to the baby because you're being freaking weird. But anyways, that's going to be the end of that episode. I know we had a lot of post-Thanksgiving stories, but honestly, I'm here for it because that's what the whole point of these stories are at the end of the day. I feel really bad for a few of these people, though. I mean, they're going through some really tough times. And while I do enjoy reading stories, and while I do, you know, like obviously it's like we're reading somebody else's lives, I still feel like, you know, some of these stories do affect me. And I sometimes think like, I hope OP is doing okay, you know, because sometimes they don't really give an update, so you don't really know what's going on. But I do hope that these people are okay. I do hope everybody is enjoying life and having a good life other than the stories that we've been reading. And I also hope that you guys are having a good life as well. If you did like today's video, just make sure you give me a like and subscribe. And we just hit 14,000 followers on our Instagram page. That is so incredibly awesome. Thank you guys so much for all your support. And also for anybody that's new here, just as kind of like a disclaimer about like what I do. Besides reading Reddit stories on the podcast, I also make food videos on my main page, and I stream to Twitch. I stream video games on Twitch, but I was also thinking too, like if enough people join, then we can definitely read Reddit stories on there as well as playing games. But yeah, so I read Reddit stories, I eat food, and I play games. I do nerd stuff, you know what I'm saying, outside of the professional realm of podcasting. So if you guys ever wanted to check out my other channels, you are more than welcome to do so if that's the kind of content that you like. I am starting a new food series on Monday. This is going to be posted Tuesday. But yeah, be on the lookout for any new videos on my main page. And I also post Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and TikTok. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!